Yo, what's going on, guys? Seth Spartan here, nutrition training hormone expert and Prometheus Pro bodybuilder with Prometheus HRT, the world's best testosterone and hormone replacement clinic. Use my code Spartan to save on either testosterone or HGH replacement therapy, or peptides, or Anavar, Anadrol. The list goes on as long as you qualify. Guys, today, this is Anavar unleashed like you've never heard it before. Guys, that's right. We've got tons and tons of stuff to talk about in today's video. I'm really excited. This is probably going to be one of the, or this is my favorite, or should be one of my favorite unleashed videos ever. So guys, we're going to go through all the pros, unbiased, uncensored, literally absolutely everything you need to know. Then we're going to go on over into the cons, unbiased, uncensored, again, everything you need to know. We're going to drop down into dosage, talk about dosage, dosing, and also what the doctors at Prometheus HRT are suggesting. Obviously, check with your doctor before you do anything. Then we're going to go on over into any extra additional information that, plain and simple, people either don't know in the first place or they're not willing to talk about. And we're going to debunk some myths and rumors in the bodybuilding, fitness, athletic industry. So guys, without any further ado, I'm Seth Spartan. This is Anavar unleashed like you've never heard it before. Let's go. So before we start hammering right through the pros, I want to point out one of the biggest cons, just in case people aren't going to stick around for the cons. The biggest con with Anavar, it's a double-edged sword. The biggest con with Anavar is that even though, and I'm going to just put this out here on the record, even though Anavar is arguably, based on the medical studies, I wouldn't even say arguably, but because Anavar is the best anabolic steroid in terms of muscle mass and muscle building, the biggest con with Anavar we're going to talk about in the cons is probable heart wall thickening. That's hypertrophying of the heart muscle, which ultimately can make the heart weaker. We'll get into all of this in a second. Having said that, here we go. Anavar unleashed, starting with the pros. First and foremost, guys, Anavar, anabolic androgenic rating or ratio of 476. Anabolic, that's huge, guys, to only 24. That's right, 24 androgenic. There is not an anabolic androgenic steroid in the world that compares to this ratings. And again, guys, this rating 476 to 24 is based off of the latest scientific research we have available. 476 to 24. And why do I say this is unlike literally any other anabolic steroid in existence? Is because look at the difference between anabolic and androgenic. Anavar is invented after a load of other anabolic steroids. Scientists, doctors, the push for anabolic steroids and to basically ultimately make the best, most advanced anabolic steroid was in its prime. And guys, after many, many tries and attempts at making anabolic steroids, guys, they came out with Anavar, which again, just before we dive into anything crazy, look at the anabolic androgenic rating and look at the difference between anabolic and androgenic. And you can see that really there is not an anabolic steroid that comes close to this. And this is why many, even if you talk to scientists that worked on anabolic steroids, this is why many would consider Anavar the closest to the perfect anabolic steroid, that you could ever make. So moving on to the pros. I wasn't going to talk about this yet. This is our second pro. I wasn't going to talk about this yet because we haven't even talked about what kind of steroid Anavar is, what it is in general, half-life, all this other stuff. But this has to be said because this is by far the biggest pro with Anavar. We'll talk about what Anavar is and classification and half-life in just a second. Moving on to the pros. Anavar unleashed. Anavar is 4 to 5 times more muscle building than Dianabol in real world studies. Let me say that again. Anavar builds 4 to 5 times more muscle than Dianabol in the real world, and real world practical application of these anabolic steroids. What does this mean? This means, guys, that this rating we see, anabolic 476 to 24 androgenic is actually lower than its real world function. Guys, take a drug, put in your minds, think of a drug like halotestin. Halotestin, guys, its anabolic androgenic ratio that's been developed by the scientific community is highly inflated. On paper, it is highly greater than it actually functions in the real world. And we see this a little bit with some anabolic steroids, more with others. In Anavar's case, the anabolic rating ratio does not do it justice. Anavar is far more anabolic. We see this again in the real world studies. It's far more anabolic than 476. Based on real world studies, comparing it with Dianabol, because we know what Dianabol's rating is, arguably Anavar is closer to 600 or 700 anabolic based on real world than a 476. In other words, guys, Anavar far exceeds its on paper anabolic androgenic rating. All right, having said that, guys, let's move on to the pros. Let's move on with some more not more basic, but more needed information talking about what Anavar is. So, Anavar, guys, is what? It's a DHT derivative anabolic steroid. What does that mean? We have testosterone derivatives, we have DHT derivatives, and we have 19-nor, also known as nandrolone derivative steroids. These three groups, guys, basically encompass every single performance anabolic steroid in existence, and not just for performance, but for medical uses also. And all these three guys, testosterone, DHT, and 19-nor, these are all found in the human body, interestingly enough. And these are the master classes of anabolic steroids that all other derivatives come from. Moving on, so it's a DHT derivative drug. Anavar boasts a 9-hour half-life. In some studies a little bit faster, others a little bit slower, dependent on age, metabolism, genetics, weight, such and so forth. But right around Anavar is boasting a 9-hour half-life, which is pretty consistent with other DHT derivative oral steroids, such as Anavar, or we're talking about Anavar, such as Anadrol and such as Winstrol. So the half-lives are all around the same. The one thing with Anavar that we got to talk about, Anavar is arguably, based on the scientific research, Anavar is the hardest anabolic steroid, the most hardened anabolic steroid against what? Against metabolism in the human body. What does this mean? Because Anavar is a DHT derivative steroid, and because even though even being a DHT, even though it's more metabolically hardened or resistant to metabolism in the human body than other DHTs like Anadrol, Winstrol, a lot of A words. What does this mean? It means it's a more effective muscle builder. It's harder for the body to break down in muscle tissue and harder to break down in fat tissue. And this is another reason why Anavar is so powerful and potent, guys, at burning body fat. We're going to get into that in a second. All right, moving down to the pros. Anavar, unleashed. No estrogen conversion whatsoever with Anavar. So Anavar falls into the class of DHT derivative anabolic steroids. DHT stands for dihydrotestosterone, obviously. Hopefully most people know that. Anyways, moving on. So no estrogen conversion with Anavar. Now, why is this important? This is important because of the class that it falls into. Testosterone derivative steroids like equipoise or Dianabol can obviously convert into estrogen. DHT derivatives cannot. 19-nor or nandrolone derivatives can convert into estrogen. Having said that, but at a lesser rate. So with DHT derivatives, and Primobolan is also a DHT derivative, by the way, so is Mastron, and those two cannot and will not convert into estrogen either. But no estrogen conversion with the drug Anavar. It cannot convert under any circumstance into estrogen. And with Anadrol doesn't convert to estrogen, but Anadrol does have a small binding affinity onto what estrogen receptor sites in the human body, thereby exerting its estrogenic effects. Go watch my Anadrol Unleashed video for everything you need to know on Anadrol. Moving on. Guys, moving down to the pros, with Anavar, it is low androgenic. This is perhaps also one of the biggest pros with Anavar. We see with Anavar in medical usage and literature, guess what doctors and physicians, well, doctors, physicians, same kind of thing. Guess what doctors and medical personnel were doing? They would be prescribing Anavar to both women and children, and even at arguably higher dosages. What is it? What do we know about Anavar? Extremely safe in terms of androgenic effects and androgenic component. At a 24 androgenic rating, the rate of masculization on females, virilization is extremely low, but still possible, for if you're doing something for longer periods of time or at higher dosages in terms of females. Having said that, guys, moving down in the pros, and one more thing on the low androgenic. This makes, not with Anavar, this is not going to work with Anavar. However, usually when a drug has a lower androgenic rating, it means that it's able to be dosed higher before any androgenic effects set in, okay? However, with Anavar is a drug that is so powerful that you do not want to dose it too high. Okay, we're going to get into this in talking about performance and bodybuilding athletics in just a second, but we're going to hold off on that for now. But this makes it extremely advantageous, guys, for performance and bodybuilding in terms of muscle gain, having a low androgenic component. Moving on to the pros. This has to be said. There's no two if, and, or but around this. Anavar is the best muscle building anabolic steroid of all time. Full stop. Period. Also, Anavar is the best fat loss or fat burning anabolic steroid of all time. Anavar is literally the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And that's why, guys, originally it was created. It was created for that purpose. And not really for performance reasons, surprisingly. It was created for medical reasons, to be the greatest anabolic steroid of all time. And guys, again, at the heat of the steroid race or development era in America, and also the world for that matter, Anavar fits that bill. It is the greatest anabolic steroid of all time in the world, anywhere, for muscle building and fat loss. However, this comes with one really heavy-handed con, just because how powerful it is. Again, if we go by the real-world studies, instead of the 476 anabolic rating, if this rating were accurate, it would be probably closer to 600 or 700. Again, based on real-world what we see. And actually, in some studies, the anabolic rating of Anavar did come back at 600. But according to some of the lesser studies, we have to say 476 because it's based on theoretical rating system. Anyways, so that's pretty much it, guys, on Anavar. It is the GOAT, the greatest of all time for muscle building and fat loss. And if people are denying that, they have not used pharmaceutical prescription grade Anavar. Most Anavar, guys, almost all, I can't say all, I guess, almost all Anavar that you get that's not from a doctor or not from a pharmaceutical source is what? Fake. It's all Winstrol or something cheaper. Most of the time it's Winstrol. Why? Anavar is extremely hard to make and it's extremely expensive compared to other anabolic steroids. So, if somebody's saying Anavar is not the greatest of all time, they have not used prescription grade, pharmaceutical grade Anavar. There is nothing like it in terms of building muscle and burning fat on this planet. And I'm not telling you guys to use it because we're going to get into, again, like I talked about, the one biggest con with Anavar is heart wall thickening because it's so powerful of an anabolic. We're going to get into that in just a minute or two. But it has to be said, again, it is the most powerful, most advanced, it is the greatest anabolic steroid of all time for building muscle and burning fat period, full stop. And guys, I can say this. Why? Because first off, I'm with arguably the best hormone replacement clinic in the world, and I have a prescription for Anavar. I've used Anavar. And the thing is that, I haven't used Anavar in a while. I have my script, just barely used. But the thing is, I can tell you guys without a doubt, especially having a prescription myself and having used it from the doctor, from the pharmacy, it is wicked strong. And again, this is not without sides. And there's a reason, guys. I just want to throw this in here real quick. There's a reason why I have, barely used it. There's a reason. And why is because of heart wall thickening, probable heart wall thickening, because Anavar, the anabolic component, is so incredibly strong. Okay? So, there's a reason why testosterone is the best anabolic steroid. And it's not just, it builds muscle, it burns fat. Not nowhere near close to the amount of Anavar, but guys, it's safer and your body can tolerate it because Anavar is really a double-edged sword. Please remember that. Moving on. Anavar Unleashed. Many short-term safety studies. It has to be said. We have to talk about it and throw this in here. With Anavar, both Anavar and Anadrol, we have tons and tons and tons of, guess what? Short-term safety studies. Anavar has been shown and proven to be extremely safe short-term for women, for children, and that's what we know on it. So Anavar is extremely safe, but with Anavar misuse or abuse, especially seeing all this garbage, I'm just going to call it straight garbage that you see online. Oh, dose Anavar at 50 milligrams a day. Oh, you can go up to 80 milligrams. Guys, that is not right. That is not good dosing. You are going to screw yourself up for the rest of your life. We're talking about especially heart wall thickening. Possible, you can have some plaque buildup with, man, I guess I'm not saving the cons for right now, but you can have some plaque buildup with Anavar because it's an anabolic androgenic steroid. But the big problem with Anavar is going to be heart wall thickening. We're going to get into that in just a second, okay? But please do not listen to these gurus or these people that have no idea what they're talking about, because 99% of them have never used real Anavar. First off, and they have not talked to doctors. I've talked to my doctor about Anavar, and there's too much misinformation, and that's why that's the purpose of these Unleashed videos in the first place, guys. I'm going to give you all the pros I can give you, everything, not leaving out anything. But I'm also not going to leave out any of the cons and the negatives of these compounds, these hormones, these drugs, because that would be doing a disservice to you guys. So let's move on. But as far as Anavar, one of the biggest pros is many short-term safety studies, as long as it's not abused or misused. Again, we're talking these studies, a lot of them are from women and children. So it can be done safely, but most of the time people are not because of the amount of misinformation and garbage on this subject. Moving on. Last pro with Anavar, low liver toxicity. I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, Anavar, has the lowest liver toxicity of any oral anabolic steroid. And not true. Anavar's liver toxicity is low. It's less than most. Dianabol, Winstrol are the worst oral anabolic steroids. The liver absolutely hates them, okay? It is not, those hormones are not processed well by the liver. Having said that, even though they're all C17 alkylated. Go figure. But with Anavar, it has, yes, period. Anavar has a low liver toxicity. Very low. But guess what? It's not as low as Anadrol. Anadrol has an even lower liver toxicity. What? That's contrary to everything I've heard before. Well, yeah, guys. But you know why? The thing is that Anavar, people usually use at lower dosages. People are not afraid of using Anadrol at 150 milligrams a day. So milligram per milligram, Anavar has what? A higher liver toxicity than Anadrol. However, Anadrol, causes much more liver toxicity because people are taking 10 times more. Not theoretic. I'm being a little bit sarcastic. Not 10 times more, but they take a lot more. It's not uncommon for people to take 150 milligrams of Anadrol, but people usually, even if they're being, reckless. Usually people are not taking more than 50 milligrams of Anavar. So that's where this whole, garbage, information has been coming from. But Anavar, I would say, right around the second lowest liver toxicity out of any oral anabolic steroid. Anadrol being the lowest, just below Anavar in terms of liver toxicity and safety on the liver. And I want to touch on the dilution method here real quick with Anavar. I've done this method myself. Again, like I said, I have a prescription for Anavar. So what I have noticed, guys, and this is a huge pro tip, please, and check with your doctor before you do anything, but I'm sure he'll check off on this. The dilution method, what you can do is, what you're going to do is take your Anavar dosage, whatever you're taking, for me, 5-10 milligrams, when I did take it, 5-10 milligrams of Anavar. What you're going to do is you throw it in about 16 ounces of water, and you shake it up until it's completely dissolved. If it's real prescription Anavar, this will happen, okay? So what you're going to do is take, or at least it'll look like it's completely dissolved. I don't know the chemical nature if it completely dissolves like sugar, but you understand my illustration here. What you want to do, 16 ounces of water and your dosage of Anavar. For me, it was usually 5 or 10 milligrams. You're going to shake that up until you can't see the Anavar anymore. It looks like it's dissolved. What you're going to do is then you're going to chug. You're going to drink the 16 ounces of dissolved Anavar, diluted Anavar, and within a half an hour you train. Okay, we'll talk about the saturation method in a second, because that's what that is. Saturation method, getting the receptors pounded while you're working out and blood's pumping into those muscles. And that's the best way to use oral anabolic steroids, by the way. Again, check with your doctor to confirm what I'm saying to you. Having said that, by doing this, guys, by doing this method, you can lower your liver levels, your liver enzymes, the amount of stress and the hit that Anavar, Anadrol, any oral steroid is doing to your liver, okay? So just putting that out here there. Again, guys, you can get Anavar prescription grade, pharmaceutical grade Anavar from a doctor, from Prometheus HRT. As long as you qualify, you're healthy, and that's pretty much it. So, guys, this is Anavar Unleashed. We've talked about all the pros, unbiased, uncensored. Here we go, moving into the cons. Again, I'm pumped for this video. Anavar is probably one of my favorite compounds to talk about, but let's get into why it's a double-edged sword. Anavar Unleashed, here we go, moving into the cons. Anavar, the biggest con with Anavar, like I've already stated, I wanted to save it for the cons, but we had to bring it up beforehand. The biggest con with Anavar is heart wall thickening. A thickening of the heart wall itself. Now, how does this happen? Heart wall thickening can occur with any anabolic steroid. It can occur with testosterone. Why? What happens is, guys, is that the heart is also a muscle. Obviously, it's not skeletal muscle, but it is a muscle nonetheless, and there are androgen receptor sites on the heart. It's a cardiac muscle, if you remember your anatomy. What does this mean? This means when you take lots of testosterone, or even it's dose dependent, okay? Because even if I do a high TRT, I'm going to have a little bit of heart wall thickening. Having said that, I'm giving you guys so much information here, more than I need to. But anyways, it's an Unleashed video, so here we go. So what happens? You take testosterone, anabolic steroids. The more you take, what happens? The heart's a muscle. It's the cardiac muscle. What happens to it? It hypertrophies. The same as skeletal muscle to a lesser extent. But the thing is that it still hypertrophies. Why? There's androgen receptor sites all on the heart, whether we like it or not. So what's going to happen is when you take testosterone, Anavar, Anadrol, any anabolic steroid, you name it, at whatever dosage, the more you go up, the more heart wall thickening you're getting. Why? Because the heart is hypertrophying, just like your skeletal muscle, just like your biceps. The heart is going to hypertrophy. Now, we think that this is good. Oh, a stronger heart beats harder, beats faster. No, it doesn't, actually. The thicker the heart wall gets, pay attention to this, guys. This is unbelievably important. The thicker the heart wall gets, the more inefficient it is, the more ineffective it is at pumping blood out into the body. Why? A bigger, stronger heart does not mean a more efficient one. Why? Because the heart, that left ventricle, has a harder time when the wall's thicker of basically contracting all the way, which means that yes, your heart is getting stronger, but ultimately it is producing a weaker heart in the sense that it is not able to pump as much blood out. It's not able to contract all the way. It's not able to force as much blood out because the wall's thicker. So a bigger, stronger, hypertrophied heart, yes, it's stronger, but it's not able to contract to the full extent as it was before. I would use the term range of motion has decreased, which I guess it has, but that's more of a term that we would use for anatomy and physiology in terms of exercise science. But you guys understand what I'm saying here. And check with your doctor, your caller. I was just with a really good cardiologist the other day talking about anabolic steroids and other things. And he, whatever. I gotta sort my thoughts here. But anyways, moving on. But we were talking about anabolic steroids, and there's just so much in regards to the heart and the cardiovascular system. And okay, so with Anavar, got to get back on the ship here. With Anavar, why is heart wall thickening the worst side effect? Let me tell you guys why. It's right here. The anabolic androgenic rating. Ignore the androgenic. We know on paper, 476 according to the latest medical studies. And we know that it's actually higher than this in real life. Based on real world studies, it's closer to 600, okay, give or take. Which means what? It means that milligram per milligram, you can do up to 6 times more heart wall thickening, not just to the muscles, but to the heart. So it's really the anabolic, the crazy powerful anabolic component of Anavar, which is building tons of muscle, burning tons of fat. It's coming back like a double-edged sword, and it's hurting you in the heart department, in the cardiac department. So this is why I wouldn't say possible heart wall thickening. With Anavar, I would say probable. So that's why the dosage recommendation has to be extremely, guys, please listen to me. It has to be extremely, extremely careful with dosing this drug, because Anavar is not a weak drug and it is not a walk in the park. It will damage your health permanently unless you are extremally careful with it. People don't respect this drug. I don't respect most drugs, I suppose. But, I mean, that's beside the point. Moving on. Heart wall thickening, that's the biggest con. Second biggest con. Plaque buildup in the arteries. Now, every anabolic steroid in existence, including our beloved natural native testosterone as males, every anabolic steroid causes plaque buildup in the arteries and heart wall thickening with abuse or misuse, depending on the dosage and amount of time on, period. And I told you guys I was just talking with a really good cardiologist the other day, right? Brilliant, great cardiologist. You know what he told me? Based on medical literature and research that he knows, even going on a HRT or a TRT, if I take 250 milligrams of testosterone and I do that for the rest of my life, you know what he said? You're speeding up plaque buildup a little bit. You have a little bit more plaque buildup in your arteries by just doing 200, 250 milligrams of testosterone a week. Okay? That's what he told me. You go on TRT, you have a little bit more plaque in your arteries. Prove it. You cannot argue that. So if TRT does that, how much more plaque buildup in the arteries if someone's using 1,000 milligrams of testosterone, 2,000, and the list goes up, or if somebody's using Anavar wrong, or Anadrol or anything else. But with Anavar, it's even harder to do heart wall thickening because of the method we talked about. But with the plaque buildup in the arteries, it is still possible to do with Anavar. But the take-home closing message with with plaque buildup in the arteries and heart wall thickening is that heart wall thickening is the worst. We talked about that at length. And in terms of plaque buildup in the arteries, it's possible with Anavar, but it's less likely than something like testosterone. If you're abuse and misuse with Anavar, based on what I know, you're less likely to develop plaque buildup in the arteries than abusing testosterone or a drug with a higher androgenic rating, because that's going to screw up your blood vessels more due to the high blood pressure and other things. So, but both of these exist. This heart wall thickening is just a lot more probable than plaque buildup in the arteries, again, based on what I know. Okay, boom. Whew, I'm sweating. We got through those two. Again, giving you guys all the best information. Moving on, this is Anavar Unleashed. Moving down to the cons. With Anavar, our beloved Anavar, one of the biggest cons is no long-term, I want to repeat that, no long-term safety studies on Anavar. Now this is actually quite dangerous. Why? Because it is a pharma drug. It is a pharmaceutical grade drug that is developed, not just developed, but developed and used extensively for research purposes. Okay? So we don't have any long-term safety studies really on Anavar. We don't know how this affects people long-term besides, everything we've been talking about. And that is why, again, guys, Anavar is 100% safe for short-term use if you're healthy, under doctor supervision, doing everything correctly at low dosages. But Anavar is not safe whatsoever using long-term, regardless what anyone says. We don't have the long-term studies to back it up. Again, check with your doctor before you do anything or take anything that I'm saying literally, as you should, okay? You should always check with your doctor and check out this stuff for yourself. Please, moving on. Going down from this, high blood pressure, kidney damage. Looking at this right away, guys, we see that Anavar, although Anavar at high dose abuse or misuse, it could cause high blood pressure. Again, going to what? The androgenic rating or ratio. We see that the androgenic component is so low, and also there's no estrogen conversion causing edema or bloat or water retention or anything like that. Anavar, based on the androgenic and also doesn't convert to estrogen, we see that it's extremely not likely to cause high blood pressure. Not saying it can't. You can cause high blood pressure with Anavar, but it's extremely unlikely unless you're blasting dosages through the roof. And secondly, as for kidney damage from high blood pressure, that's even less likely. It's not really, it's possible, but it's nowhere near probable. But again, going back to this androgenic component. And again, you don't have any high blood pressure elevation leading to long-term kidney damage from estrogen conversion because there is none. Moving on. Liver toxicity. Well, we already talked about this at length. Liver toxicity, 100% possible with Anavar. You can have liver toxicity with Anavar, but the dosages would have to be decently high in order to do that. Or, maybe you're drinking with Anavar or you're taking ibuprofen, other things like that. But it's possible to have liver toxicity. It's possible to have liver toxicity with Anavar. But guys, it's plain and simple, just not likely, okay? Unless, again, you're majorly abusing this drug. However, I do want to throw this in. There was a study done with oral primobolan, which was arguably also one of the safest oral anabolic steroids. They gave it to a 70-something-year-old patient, and he died, okay? He died from oral primobolan, which has a very low liver toxicity in the medical literature. Now, now he wasn't in a good, good health. But still, this opened the eyes, I'm sure, of some doctors saying, hey, even though liver toxicity is low, it's still there. And that's something you have to check on, because if you're prone, or if you're drinking, or if you're taking ibuprofen or other medications, guys, get your liver values checked. And you should be getting your liver values checked even if you have no history or no problems. Why? Because the liver toxicity is still present with Anavar, even though it's low. Moving on. Shutdown. Anavar Unleashed, shutdown. Anavar will shut you down like any other anabolic steroid or any SARM for that matter, or anything else. I just talked about, I'm going to do a video talking about SARMs. SARMs shut you down just like anabolic steroids. I know somebody very well. Took moderate dose of SARMs, 2 weeks, testosterone comes back at 200. That's like nothing. That's less than a 70-year-old man. Okay, so I don't want to hear it from the gurus, coaches, or people that say, oh, SARMs don't shut you down. They shut you down. Okay, it's plain and simple, that's a lie. If you're saying, oh, I took almost nothing of SARMs, it didn't shut me down. Okay, that's fine, let's see the blood work. But still, SARMs shut you down at moderate dosages. Moving on. Low estrogen sides study. All right, so low estrogen sides. We see with Anavar, You're not likely to have low estrogen with Anavar unless you're running it alone. Let me say that again. Do not, or let me say it in a different way. Do not ever run Anavar alone, okay? Either you have to be keeping your natural production going with HCG or a different compound, or you have to, in fact, I would probably say that wouldn't be enough. You want to be taking a testosterone replacement dose if you're going to add Anavar on top. Why? Estrogen will get too low and it'll crash. There's a study done with 60, I think there was between 60 and 70-year-old men, so elderly men. Doctors prescribed them 20 milligrams of Anavar, I believe it was. And guess what they did? They gave it to them as a standalone drug. Their estrogen went to nothing, which is really also terrible for your heart, cardiovascular system. And low estrogen in males, guys, it has terrible side effects. Low estrogen in male, can make males suicidal, terrible depression, anxiety, all this. Insomnia. A lot of men can't sleep because they have low estrogen from having low testosterone. The effects just compound. We got so much to talk about in all these Unleashed videos. But guys, the bottom line is, and the take home is that if you're going to use Anavar, don't do it like these doctors did it. And I'm just going to say it how it is. The doctor should not have given these 60 or 70-year-old men 20 milligrams of Anavar without giving them some testosterone to convert into estrogen, because then they had no estrogen, basically. So, again, has to be said. They're doctors and I'm not, but the thing is that they figured this out pretty quickly after the study when their estrogen levels were reduced to nothing. Why? Because estrogen suppresses natural testosterone. Moving on. Anavar Unleashed. High red blood cell count. Is this possible with Anavar? Absolutely possible, because Anavar can treat anemia, but not likely. Anavar is not going to jack up red blood cell count as high as a drug like Anadrol, period. But it still can happen. Last thing, androgenic sides. You can cause androgenic sides from anabolic steroids, such as androgenic acne, an activation of the the sebaceous glands in the skin. You can have oily skin, acne. You can have all these different. You can have your hair fall out if you have male pattern baldness. All these hair growth. Androgenic sides with Anavar. Again, look at the rating. It's possible if you crank the dosage through the roof, but not likely, guys. If you're a woman, then definitely. But as a male, androgenic sides, not likely at all. Let's see here with Anavar, guys. I think that's pretty much it through the cons. We got through all of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to add in here for you guys. No, I just want to say one other thing here in talking about low estrogen sides with Anavar. So with Anavar, I told you guys already you need to use it with testosterone if you're going to use Anavar. But one other important thing I want to tell you guys. With Anavar does not, I want to repeat this again, does not act as an aromatase inhibitor or have an aromatase inhibiting ability like drugs like Masteron or Winstrol, okay? Winstrol's the worst. Masteron's not as bad, but it's still bad, okay? Winstrol gives you a shrink-wrapped, grainy look, gives you a hard shrink-wrapped, grainy look. I think I said that right. Winstrol gives you a hard, grainy, shrink-wrapped look. Masteron also does this, but not as much. Why? Because both Masteron and Winstrol act as an aromatase inhibitor. They bind to the aromatase enzyme and stop the conversion into estrogen. And that's why you have dry joints from attaching onto those estrogen receptor sites. You have dry joints from Winstrol and Masteron, dry creaky joints. You have or just straight pain. You have a loss of sub-Q water, which is good for competing and looking shrink wrapped. In other words, so the thing is that with Anavar, it's a DHT derivative just like Masteron or Winstrol, but with Anavar, you do not have this effect where Anavar basically acts as an aromatase enzyme inhibitor, okay? You just don't have that effect. So that's one thing I want to touch on. You're not going to have dry joints with Winstrol like you would, or you won't have dry joints with Anavar like you would with Winstrol or Masteron. Again, Winstrol's worse. Go watch my video on Masteron Unleashed. We'll do a video on Winstrol Unleashed soon, but that's pretty much all you guys need to know on that. Anavar does not have that same binding affinity that a drug like Winstrol or Masteron would do. So in terms of comparing Anavar to, Winstrol and Masteron real quick, Anavar, guys, listen up. Anavar will not give you, because it lacks that ability that we just talked about with the AI-like ability. Anavar will not give you this hard, grainy, shrink-wrapped look like Winstrol or like Masteron will. However, it will give you far, far more fat burning than either of those. Far more, way more. Again, there's no drug that burns fat in the world like Anavar, okay? Again, Anavar has what? High resistance to metabolism in both the fat and the muscle tissue, thereby doing what? Making it an extremely potent, powerful muscle builder and fat burner. Why? Because the body has trouble breaking it down. Think about testosterone, guys. You take a shot of testosterone, enters your bloodstream. Testosterone gets converted into DHT, dihydrotestosterone, by the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. The DHT will then attach onto sub-Q body fat, especially around the torso, and the DHT will burn body fat. Well, Anavar, guys, is a DHT derivative steroid. So what's going to happen? Anavar is going to bind those same receptor sites that DHT would around the torso, but the only difference is it's extremely resistant to metabolism, unlike DHT. So Anavar is going to burn way, way, way more fat, way more potently than dihydrotestosterone or DHT. Okay? So, anyways, moving on. Let's move into dosage. Here we go. Anavar Unleashed. Dosage. What do you need to know? With Anavar, guys, extremely important. Dosage. Check with your doctor before you do anything, but this is my professional recommendation. This is my professional, I'm getting tired. This is my professional recommendation to you guys. 5 to 20 milligrams of Anavar a day. That's it. 20 milligrams is the top limit. Let me say that again for the people that are hard of hearing or deaf. The dosage for Anavar per day is 5 to 20 milligrams per day. And that's it. Why? Because of the fact, guys, that Anavar is so ridiculously anabolic, has the highest anabolic component of arguably any steroid ever in the real world. 5 to 20 milligrams per day is all you need, and is all that you can do, arguably safely, okay? I see, we'll get into that in a second. How long? I gave you the dosage per day. How long? My professional recommendation to you would be this. Again, check with your doctor before you do anything. But my professional recommendation would be this. 5 to 20 milligrams for 1 month. 2 months, maybe, if you're doing everything under doctor supervision and getting your labs done after the first month to check for liver toxicity. But also, even if your liver's fine, the reason I wouldn't go longer than a month at a time is why? Heart wall thickening. Again, this drug is so anabolic, it's going to be more prone to that than other steroids. But 2 months is possible. But again, I personally wouldn't advise ever anybody doing more than 5 to 20 milligrams of Anavar for a month. Okay, it is just so powerful. It's not needed. And, for people that say no, they've probably been using fake Anavar all their life. Okay, bottom line. I want to address this real quick. And, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is my honest opinion. When I was prescribed Anavar, I was given Anavar at 50 pharmaceutical prescription grade from my doctor, 50 milligrams. I was prescribed 50 milligrams, daily. I'm going to say it how it is, okay? I believe, and I agree with my doctor on so many things, but reading through all of this stuff, looking at everything, I believe that's too much, okay, personally. And that's why, I was not taking those tablets. I was not taking 50 milligrams of Anavar a day. Why? Not because the liver couldn't handle it, not because of, these negatives, but because of heart wall thickening, okay? Anavar is so anabolic. Just because you can take 50 milligrams, should you? Absolutely not, okay? That's what I was prescribed, but, again, it's just not safe, all right? In my opinion, could I have done it? Yeah. But, was I willing to? No, okay? Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it as far as dosage. Let's talk about extra information. Oh, man, I'm nuts. I'm talking about all of this stuff, but again, this is Anavar Unleashed, and I'm just gonna give it to you guys, brutally honest. Anyways, extra additional information. What else do you need to know? We're gonna finish up with this. Anything besides everything we've talked about? What else do you need to know that people plain and simple don't know, or that no one's talking about? This is Anavar Unleashed. A couple more minutes. Tell you guys what nobody else talks about, and we are out of here. Let's debunk some myths. All right, we already know Anavar is the greatest of all time. However, this is the big kicker with Anavar. There is much, and by much I mean there is so much false, bad information with Anavar in the bodybuilding, fitness, athletic world. Period. So much bad information, so much false information on Anavar. Now, I hear things like, Anavar, it's weak. Oh, it's weak. It's made for girls and women. There's no respect for this drug whatsoever. People think that Anavar is the same as Dianabol. This is not true, guys. Anavar is not like Dianabol. Real world studies, 4 to 5 times more powerful. So if Anavar is 4 to 5 times more powerful than Dianabol, why would you take 50 milligrams of? Yeah, answer me this quick, okay? Answer me this. Anavar in real world studies we see is 4 to 5 times more powerful than Dianabol for building muscle. Yet the creating scientist and doctor of Dianabol advised that people should not take any more than 15 milligrams of Dianabol per day. Why? Because Dianabol is terrible for your heart. Honestly, it is terrible for your heart. Go watch my Dianabol video. So if the original dosage of Dianabol by the doctor scientist who created it, who Dr. Ziegler, I trust his research. If he said no more than 15 milligrams, but people don't listen to him, so they take 50 milligrams of Dianabol instead of 15. If Anavar is 4 to 5 times more powerful than Dianabol, which shouldn't be dosed at more than 15 milligrams, why are some people taking 50 milligrams of Anavar? It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. Okay, so there is a lot of bad information on this drug. Okay, and I think a lot of it's because it's most of it's fake. But what else am I going to say besides this? And because of this misinformation, Anavar is highly abused, unfortunately. And bodybuilding, guys, let's get real for a second. Bodybuilding, open, classic physique, fitness and athletics. People abuse anabolic steroids. Period. Okay? And what is always, when talking about anabolic steroid misuse or abuse, that kills people? I had a bug on my foot, I think. But when talking about anabolic steroid misuse or abuse, what kills people? 9 times out of 10. It's not the kidneys. It's not the liver. It always comes back to what? the heart. The only two, pretty much, I better not say the only, because people will quote me and twist my words. Arguably, the only two problems, not the only two problems, the only two serious life-threatening side effects with anabolic steroids that will kill you is plaque buildup in the arteries and heart wall thickening. So when bodybuilders, athletes, fitness people, people in the fitness industry, when they die from anabolic steroid misuse or abuse, it's because of what? These two: plaque buildup in the arteries and heart wall thickening. So, guys, this is Anavar Unleashed. Absolutely everything you need to know. We talked about the pros, unbiased, uncensored, literally everything you need to know. And we talked about all the cons. Guys, make the best choices. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Check with a doctor. You can get plugged in with a hormone replacement doctor at Prometheus HRT. They are arguably the best hormone replacement clinic in the U.S. and they have doctors who specialize with athletes. But the big take-home thing here is guys, be safe, be healthy, do everything right. You only have one body, okay? And you need to respect these drugs, okay? Because people will go and they will, they will drink a bottle and they'll drive home drunk and kill somebody. People will be reckless and with whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or all these things. And with anabolic steroids, you can arguably, you can abuse these drugs for pretty long periods of time. Most of them are extremely safe, but you can abuse these things, and after years and years of doing it, depending on the dosage, it might not even be years. But if you abuse these drugs and you don't respect them, you're gonna have problems, and that's why I highly advise you guys: do not chase the size game. Do not try. There's no point in just drugs and drugs and drugs. People need to respect these things like anything else, okay? So, anyways, enough of the parent rant. Seth Spartan, this is Anavar Unleashed. Stay safe, stay healthy, and you guys guessed it, we are out of here.